4.5 win total. Vegas sees it. We all see it. This is going to be a bad team. Is it easy for the guys on the field to block out that quarterback dynamic of it and focus on their job?
No, when your team sucks, it's not easy, because you're going to look at a kid like Drake Maye, who some guys might look at and go, well, damn, this kid gives us a better chance to win and do some things, because, I told you, when you have things that kind of falling apart and you get to this backyard football, it's about guys having athletic ability, especially at the quarterback position, to extend plays. I remember playing in Minnesota with Dante Culpepper, and his ability to keep a play going just allows a wide receiver to uncover and make a play. And that's the thing that you see all the time with athletic quarterbacks, the ability, because a DB can only cover for so long, and sooner or later you'll be able to uncover because the quarterback has that capability and he's able to make plays. We've seen it in the preseason game with Drake Maye rolling out to his left, throwing across his body, and guys are going to be in that locker room and they're going to say, hey, listen, we like Jacoby Brissett. We think he's a great guy, but he doesn't give us the best chance of winning, or he doesn't give us the best chance to have an explosive offense. I think this is, like I said, I just think this is a bad decision. I don't know. I know Gerard has said he's the final decision maker, but I don't know if this is something that's being forced on him by Alex Van Pelt and Elliott Wolf. I just think it's stupid. Does anybody complain about Bryce Young playing in Carolina? He got beat up last year. I think, if anything, Bryce Young will tell you, hey, that 1 year allowed me to be leaps and bounds ahead of where I am for my second year. I think it's stupid. Everybody goes, oh, what about Aaron Rodgers? What about he sat behind Brett Favre, and Jordan Love sat behind Aaron Rodgers. Those are Hall of Fame guys. I think you just play guys. No one's complaining in Washington by playing Jaden Daniels. I think you draft a guy that high, you play him.
Yeah, and of course, Aaron Rodgers sitting behind Brett Favre, he said a Hall of Famer. Jordan Love, same thing. Even the Patrick Mahomes, Alex Smith debate, that was a playoff team for the Chiefs. Alex Smith leading them into the playoffs. There was no rush. The sense of urgency is different in New England. But even look at Bryce Young, and we'll see if he makes that year 2 jump. But Dave Canales, one of the best play callers, they invest in the offensive line. Deontay Johnson, Xavier Legette, along with Adam Thielen, they got him the weapons. I just don't see that support around Drake Maye. But again, it goes to you play him, you get those real game reps. He'll play at some point this season, and I don't think the Patriots are helped by their schedule at all. What do you think about it?
Let me ask this question.
Yeah.
What's the difference between starting Drake Maye in week 5 and starting Drake Maye in week 1, other than the 4 weeks?
I don't think you know who can block up front. Like, we've never seen a healthy offensive line. They've looked like crap. And the steps that they have taken where he comes in, where his footwork was awful, his needing to make progressions, like, this is a guy that might have had to sit a year or 2. If that offensive line looks fine, you start Drake Maye. But they don't actually know, because Vidarian Lowe goes down, which isn't a left tackle you want. Sidney So goes down, so that's a shakeup to your starting left guard. Onwenu, Chuks Okorafor, Caden Wallace, Layden Robinson, all these guys are unproven except for Onwenu on the right side. If that offensive line looks fine, and you know that by week 5, you go by him. If they look fine by week 3, go with them against week 4. But I think they also look at the schedule of at Cincinnati. Seahawks, I think that'll be a closer game. Then at New York, at San Francisco. You at least want to get him into his spot to succeed, and he needs to succeed by having a good offensive line up front. And it is, end of the day, first-time head coach, first-time offensive play caller, first-time defensive coordinator, a lot of first times around a kid. If you rush him and he regresses back to UNC Drake Maye, then it can ruin the next year or 2, where this is a 3, 4, 5, 10-year plan of Drake Maye can be that guy. I think this is the shortcoming of the front office. I mentioned it to you, Wiggy. They did not get a left tackle. It's kicking them right now. They didn't go out and get a playmaker on the outside. It's kicking them right now. So the guys we've seen play, and Bryce Young didn't succeed, but like a CJ Stroud, that's an anomaly. Guys that played as a rookie, they had good wide receivers. They had an offensive line. They don't have that right now in New England. So I think that's the difference between week 1 and week 5. But if the offensive line looks good, then week 5, week 6, I'm fine. I'm saying week 9 against the Titans, week 8, week 9. I'm saying around there. But if it's week 5 and they look good, go ahead. That's how I stand.
But here's what I would say to this. How many bad teams who draft in the top 5, who have bad teams, bad personnel, coming off a bad year, draft a quarterback in the top 5, sit that quarterback? Everybody brings up Alex Smith. And Alex Smith, remember, before he got to Kansas City, 2 years prior to getting to Kansas City, he took a San Francisco team to the playoffs. Everybody talks about, we already talked about Aaron Rodgers, and we talked about Jordan Love. When you start to think of these guys, look at the guys that are in similar situations. Guys like Matt Ryan. We had Matt Ryan on the Greg Hill Show, and he talked about how much experience he gained from getting actual live reps every day in practice and playing in games, and how much better it made him as a quarterback. You look at a guy like Matthew Stafford. Guess what? When Detroit sucked, you think they said, all right, we're going to sit him on the bench for a backup? You look even when Cleveland and Alex Van Pelt was down there in 2017, when they stunk and they drafted Baker Mayfield, they didn't say, well, you know what, this team around them stinks, let's sit him. Teams that are in the position as New England, who are coming off a bad season, who are not a good football team, and they draft that high, they generally play those guys. We saw it with Carolina. We saw it with everybody want to talk about C.J. Stroud. That Houston Texans team won 4 games before they drafted him, or maybe 2 games, and they went right in and played. That's what happens when you're talking about having a bad team. And that experience, there's nothing better than real life football. I don't care what anybody says. You're not learning anything standing on the sidelines holding a clipboard. It's just you're not going to be able to advance as far as you would, even if you're getting beat up. At least you're getting all that knowledge from that end game. It's going to make you better next year.
Yeah, the problem the Patriots have, once week 1 rolls around, those starter reps will end up going to Jacoby Brissett with this offense.
Right.
I think of, like, you listed Matt Stafford. I don't know who came first, him or Calvin Johnson. You mentioned Matt Ryan. I mean, he had a good offensive line, and he had Roddy White, who was at the peak of his career, getting to his peak at that point. And C.J. Stroud with Bobby Slowick. That's going to be the next head coach to come, with Nico Collins, with Tank Dell, and with an experienced offensive line as banged up as they were. But also C.J. Stroud is an anomaly. You could even bring up Justin Herbert, how good he was. Threw for 4,000 yards his rookie season. But there's Herbert, there's Cam Newton, there's Andrew Luck, there's C.J. Stroud. Those are 4 or 5 guys that threw for 4,000 yards as a rookie. The only 5 to do that, including Jameis Winston. But I just think of those situations, it's better than what they have in New England. But again, if that offensive line looks fine, like, that's my biggest concern. I don't want him to regress back, but he's shown the flashes. He'll eventually get that live football. I also think it's how the Patriots just look at the uncertainty up front. If they don't keep him upright, and Wiggy, you know how it is. They're going to get PTSD from what happened to Mac Jones. Now, what happened to Mac Jones in and of itself was an anomaly. Shouldn't happen with May, but they messed up Mac. They don't want to mess up Drake Maye because they'll be picking in the same spot 3 years from now, right?
Well, let me ask you this question, because everybody goes into that and let the offensive line chirp. If the offensive line is that bad and that we all expect that they're going to struggle, Jacoby Brissett can't move. He's not a mobile quarterback. Throughout his career, he's gotten injured. What happens if he gets knocked out in the second quarter of the game?
Yeah,
Do you put Drake Maye in?
Yeah, they probably would have to. You take more of the starter reps. I wouldn't want him. I don't want him there. I don't like how they have Joe Milton as a backup. They should have went out and got a vet.
Right, but I see. This is what I mean. If you're going into the mindset of, we drafted this kid number 3 overall, but our offensive line isn't great, and we want to wrap him in bubble wrap for the year, what are we doing here? So what was your expectations on this football season if you're saying to yourself, even if Jacoby Brissett gets hurt, oh, we could have went out and got a backup. So you drafted a kid number 3 overall to be the 3rd string quarterback? That's just the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
They drafted him to be the franchise quarterback the next 10 years.
Right.
And they can mess it all up in year 1 or year 2.
Right, but you have to play the kid.
Yeah.
You can't say, okay, we're going to make him the franchise, but guess what? His first year, he's going to be the 3rd string. I've never seen that in my whole playing career, where a team drafts a kid in the top 5 and then say, hey, we don't want to play this kid when we got a bad football team. I mean, I get some of the points that you're trying to make, but my thing is this: you always baptism by fire. It's the best way to learn. It's the only way you'll make it in the NFL. And guess what? If he struggles, now you can maybe say, let's see how he does his second year. And if he can't get the job done, then you go the direction of the New York Jets and you try to get a veteran quarterback and you move on from him. That's the way the league works.
Yeah, I'm not saying don't play him. I think Tennessee later in the season, at the latest, should be like week 13 right before their bye. And again, like, you always look at the bye week, right? Like, I mean, as a vet, like, all right, when do I get a week off? For teams with rookies, they go, all right, when can we ease them in? The Patriots got screwed by that late bye. If it's week 5, you come home, Miami, Texans, again, it's the difference. Get out the offensive line. Let him play. They should let him play. He needs to play, because I agree with you on that. Baptism by the fire. Timelines are different, and we'll see. I mean, this Sunday, If that offensive line actually executes against the Bengals, who have a good defensive line and are led by a good defensive coordinator, Lou Anarumo, that could change a lot. What do you think happens this Sunday? What's your prediction for their season opener against the Bengals?
You know what? I don't think Jamar Chase is going to play personally, because if I was him, I wouldn't play until I got my new contract. I wouldn't run the risk of doing it, especially when you start to see these wide receivers all across the league getting big money. But I just think that when you look at their offense, Cincinnati's offense, they're still going to have firepower with T. Higgins. We obviously know about Joe Burrow. To me, the biggest thing is, what's this New England Patriots defense going to look like? You lost Matthew Judon, probably your best defensive player. He was a guy that was a double-digit sack machine. You now lose that. You got to be able to replace that production. Who's the guy who steps up in that role to maybe make things a little bit tough for Joe Burrow? So that's kind of where I see it, but I still think it's going to be very difficult for the Patriots to win, because I just don't think they're giving themselves the best chance of winning, because I don't think Jacoby Brissett is that guy. He's a good backup, but he's a backup at best.
Yeah, he is what he is, especially at this point in his career. What would you say would be a successful season for the Patriots this season, Jermaine?
I think a successful season is really seeing Drake Maye play, and then you can at least say we've seen him make plays. We've seen him where he looks like he has that potential. We've seen him where he has that upside. I mean, when you think about, there was games that we watched with Mac Jones, and we were like, oh, Minnesota last year, I think, is one of the games that comes to mind. And you're like, oh, maybe he does have some potential. They even did it in New York. You saw it with Zach Wilson. Like, oh, maybe this kid does have some potential. For me, a successful season is seeing Drake Maye play, and then at least being able to see, like, oh, he does have potential. I know there's gonna be some hurdles he's gonna have to deal with, but you could see, like, oh, this kid does have the talent, and that'll give, I think that'll give the team, the players, the fans, that optimism going into next year. So that to me is success. If I don't see Drake Maye play, I think it's obviously they're not going to win, and I don't think it's a successful season. Because you want to see him. And even if Drake Maye plays, I don't care how many wins they have. I just want to see, does this kid have that skill set where you could be like, all right, he looks like he could be a very good pro at this level.